Hello and welcome. I'd like to call the Monday, August 21st, 2023 regular meeting of City Council, City Council to order. So beginning with a recognition.
Maurice, if I could speak up, please. We can't hear Woody speaking at all. Could you get a little closer to your mic?
How's that?
Perfect, thank you.
The city would like to recognize that we are on the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa First Nation. We thank them for allowing us to live, work, and play on their unceded land. They're particularly in our minds right now with the recent fire there. I drove through the community today and it was quite eye-opening to see the buildings torched right to the ground. A few people lost homes entirely. Also with the state of emergency that they've called around drugs and gang violence, they're in our thoughts for sure during this time. So moving on to addition of late items. Do we need a motion to accept them? Is that?
It's we only have an email related to the DVP for 2900 Rotary Drive, or now the new address is 10 Jim Ogilvie Way, and you can just add it to the report.
Okay. So do I need a motion for that?
No, that's
okay.
Just to adopt the agenda.
Okay, perfect. So adoption of agenda. The motion on the floor is that we adopt the regular council agenda for August 21st. Do I have a mover? Royer and Cairns. All those in favor? That's passed. Adoption of council and committee minutes. These are the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on June 12th, 2023. I have a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting be adopted. Do I have a mover? McBain and Cairns. All those in favor? That's carried. Delegations and presentations. So we have a report from the RCMP today, presentation by Sergeant Stephen Woodcox. Could you come forward?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to come and present the first quarter report for fiscal year 23-24. So this year we've decided on 3 objectives for this year. One being traffic enforcement. That always seems to be a regular thing. People complain about traffic. We understand there's quite an issue with speeding and other things in the community. The second one being youth. And I'll speak to some of that later, but we see a disturbing trend in some youth, especially high-risk youth, and serious drug use in the community. I've noticed that in the last few months. I'll talk about that later. But that's the second one, youth. And the third one is targeting social and chronic offenders, especially related to property crime. Last year, we did have a spike in property crime, so that's another objective for this year, to lower those numbers. So those are the 3 objectives for this year. Just kind of a oversight between this year and last year. So if we compare 2022 to 2023, the files have gone up 16% from the same time last year. And this quarter, there were 16 reports to Crown Council, meaning we forwarded 16 reports for criminal charges to Crown Council during this quarter. And this quarter encompasses April to June 2023. When I'm done a report too, I'm more than willing to talk about July Fest and what we encountered there. So if any of the councillors have questions about that, I'm more than willing to take questions on that. Some of the subjects I decided to talk about this quarter, property crime. It went up a little bit this quarter again, but it was because we had some of those chronic offenders in the community. One in particular that ended up stealing a car and a motorcycle. Both times that person was arrested in possession of those items. That person was held in custody. That person has since been released to a drug treatment center in the interior. So he is not in the community, and surprisingly, the numbers have gone down with regards to property crime. Another thing I want to touch on, and I probably don't talk about enough. So during the quarter, we had 2 missing persons reports. Sadly, both of those people were found deceased with the assistance of the Kimberley Search and Rescue. Both were accidental incidents where people were found deceased. But I can't tell you enough how much we appreciate the help from the Kimberley Search and Rescue, especially during the fires this year. They are instrumental. Every time we have an evacuation alert, an evacuation order, we call them in to go house to house because simply we don't have enough resources. So they are individuals that are always willing to help. We cannot do our job without them. And they're very professional, very good at what they do. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. Like I said, every time we call on them, they're more than willing to come out and they do a very professional and excellent job. So I wanted to shout out to them. I mentioned traffic enforcement. So with our numbers being up, we're still at about 80%. But the traffic numbers, the quarter before, I think it was 27 tickets. And when I say tickets, they can be a violation ticket, they can be a warning, but they went up from 27 to 127. And it's not just about writing tickets and writing warnings, it's about seeing the police. Seeing the police on the road slows people down. If someone's pulled over, you know, when you see the police car, you might slow down. That's the thing that we've been missing when we were short-staffed. We weren't able to do a lot of that. But with some more members that are willing to go out on the road and do that, those numbers have improved. So it's not about writing tickets, but it's about being visible to slow people down. One thing that I mentioned earlier about youth, and one thing that I've noticed lately, I'll say the last few months, is that we are seeing a great increase in young males and females, 14, 15, using heavy drugs. And heavy drugs are meth, heroin, drugs that will change your life forever. So these are the same kids that I go to school and do talks on, but there is drugs in this community. Some are getting them from the Cranbrook area, but they're getting them from people here in town. But that is very disturbing when we're seeing that kind of stuff. And we're seeing drug overdoses with kids this age. And I have to say, I haven't seen a lot of that in the last 3 years, but I have seen a lot of that in the last few months. And those are some of our high risk youth. Yes.
Good, Woody. Thanks, Sergeant. Do you see any particular causation for this increase with the young folks?
You know, if I have to think about it, maybe I think drugs are more available. I think there is definitely a new culture of open drug use. And I think that may be contributing to that. I think access is much easier than it was before. Yeah. So, I mean, I can touch on some July Fest stuff, or I can take questions. What I can tell you about July Fest is people, for the most part, were well behaved. There was an incident where there was an intoxicated person that ended up assaulting security at the grounds. That person was arrested. That person's facing criminal charges. That is the only thing really of substance in the way of criminal charges. There were several people stopped for drunk driving and taken off the road. But that other incident, the only incident where someone was charged criminally over that period of time. People, as usual, were well behaved, the most part. But this person was arrested. Alcohol was a huge factor in what happened that day. But overall, very well behaved. Yeah, and no more problems than what I mentioned there. But I'm more than willing to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sergeant Woodcox. Does anybody else have questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sergeant. I've heard of a number of incidents that took place with the general statement of the soccer teams at the ski hill, just overbearingly taking over places and disrespecting the property, disrespecting the people, and disrespecting outside of the property. And I wondered if there was any call-ins on that, because I've had personal phone calls and stuff about it, and what are we going to do about it? And of course, it's really not the city's job to do that. So I just wondered how does that fall into your realm?
Was that an incident that happened during July Fest?
Yes, specifically and referred to as the soccer teams.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. I'm aware of other incidents that may have occurred outside of July Fest where people had rented, maybe an apartment out, had a
Yeah.
large number of people and those things got out of hand, but I'm not privy to anything in
Yeah.
regards to a soccer
It
team.
was
but-
reported to me similar to that incident you're referring to, yes. I just wondered if it got through to you, that's all. I guess not.
I did not hear the incident about the soccer team, no.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thank you very much.
So moving on to bylaws. First up, we have a solid waste regulations and fee bylaw amendment. And motion on the floor is that we approve the first, second, and third reading to bylaw number 2750, City of Kimberley Solid Waste Regulations and Fees Bylaw number 2694, Amendment number 2, 2023. Do I have a mover? McBain and Royer. Any discussion on this one? I guess Nick. Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before we dive into the topic at hand, I did want to take this opportunity and introduce our new roads manager as well. He's joined us here. So Ryan Reynolds has joined the team. I'll be talking to the report here tonight, but anything going forward can go to Ryan. Just kidding. So yeah, as the report mentions, we're kind of in the final stages of implementation for the organics collection. And with that comes an amendment to the current solid waste regulation and fees bylaw, just to capture the changes related to the organics collection. So kind of high level, we've added in the definition of what the organics are, talk about what's acceptable now inside the garbage carts and the organics carts, updates to collection frequencies, and then of course the new user fees associated with that, and an update on the cart costs in quick summary. So I'll open it up to any questions that there may be.
I did have a question just on the costs associated with this. What's the cost to the taxpayer? Is there an increase in fees? I know we're reducing the waste stream, like we're only picking up once every 2 weeks for waste. So I'm just curious what the comparison is prior to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're correct. We're with the collection of garbage going to biweekly. There's a slight reduction in that, and then of course we've added the new user fee for the organics collection. So as it stands right now, it nets out to about $35 per year increased costs per resident.
Councilor McBain.
Thanks, Nick. Just curious are we going to track, or I guess, do we have the ability to track? I think the answer is yes. Just so we can see how the organics collection is working with respect to like disturbance from animals. I mean, I think that's probably a big concern on a lot of people's minds, right? Is, you know, when you're throwing out food waste, it's going to invite our furry friends. So I was just curious if we have some kind of way to track that and just see if we're seeing any trends.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would fall into just of our regular tracking of inquiries and requests and reporting of incidents. So that would fall into our database, and we can filter it out on kind of looking back. Okay, how many wildlife interactions do we have this year compared to previous years prior to organics? As well, we work with WildSafe BC, and they help track and have those records as well. So working with those two systems, we should be able to look and see if we're seeing an increase with the implementation of organics.
Okay. To follow up to that, and the reason I ask is I appreciate there's dates set out in how often or the frequency for pickup, and I think there could be some value in that if we see, you know, over the next couple of years that, you know, really it's only April or something like that where we're just getting hammered with bears. It might be some, you know, an opportunity for us to look and say, hey, you know, maybe these months we scale this type of thing back. So that was the reason I asked that question.
Yeah, thank you. I would agree with that. We need to have the information so that we can adapt and make changes as we go, for sure.
Mr. Mayor, or sorry,
I
Woody?
believe Don was ahead of you there, Sandra. We'll get to you.
thank you.
Thanks very much. Just getting back to the $35 per year increase in cost, Nick. What is the total cost for our solid waste now? The report didn't show the kind of the current cost versus the new cost, and I'd like you to just summarize what the differences are. I seem to recall back when this is quite a while ago now, I guess, back when we approved this to go forward, that the increase in annual cost was going to be in the neighborhood of about $14, per residence. Anyway, if you could just kind of summarize what's happened since then and where we sit, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. So the current fee schedules in the bylaw there. So the garbage collection went down to $10.96 per quarter, with the reduction to biweekly. There's no change to the recycling collection, so that remains the same at $2.76 per quarter. And then we've added in the new organics collection fee at $12.50 per quarter. I'd have to. I don't have the number off the top of my head for what that nets out to annually. And the numbers we were looking at before were estimates at the time. And now we've had the actual costs in hand. So that's probably just the change in the estimates to where we're kind of landing a couple of years from where we were initially.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. I do see the kind of the existing the 1096 though. What was it before? It was
It was
reduced.
about $15
Yeah,
per
go
quarter
ahead.
previously. Yeah,
Right. Okay, cool. Thanks, Nick.
you betcha. Thank you.
Sandra, do you still have a question?
Yeah, it's a bit more of a housekeeping item because I'm not at home. I just want to ask Sean if there's going to be any kind of a calendar nailed out to residents, similar to they have done in the past with the colors and so on, indicating when what happens in what areas. Is that a plan?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Roberts. That is our plan. For our Q1 billing, we'll get a updated solid waste calendar included in that to go out to everybody. So it'll look like similar to what everyone's received in their carts here, with the calendar with each area.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just another comment with what you were bringing up around the green waste bin. Remember that all this waste is going into our black bin right now, and that is also a bear attractant. So really, we're not increasing the number of times per week that we're going to have green waste on the street, and it's the same bin. So, another question I had actually was just around the RDEK. I was under the impression their facility isn't ready yet, and I was curious what their plans are to do with the waste.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, you're correct. They are in the process of building the facility currently. They are a little bit behind, just with some budgeting issues they had to work through, from what I understand. But they have committed to take all of our organic waste, and they'll be hanging on to it. And as soon as that facility is ready to be in operation, they'll be able to put that right into the feedstock to start processing it right away.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, all those in
Woody?
favor?
Hang on.
Don?
Yeah. Yeah, just further to that, at the last regional district meeting, there was an update, and they're estimating that they're running about 30 days behind. So it's not like it's going to be a long time, and they will take the organic waste, they will stage it, and eventually move it into the new facility when it's available. But they're talking about a month or maybe 2 at the most right now.
Thanks, Don. That's helpful. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? That's carried. Moving on to zoning amendment bylaw number 2751, M2 storage amendments. And the motion on the floor is that the council approve first and second reading to bylaw 2751, City of Kimberley zoning bylaw number 1850, amendment number 170, 2023. And a seconder, Steve Royer, McBain and Royer. All those in favor? I mean, we've gone over this. Yeah. This isn't anything new to any of us. Does anybody want to speak to this? We've got a lot on the agenda and yeah, just so everybody knows, we've talked quite extensively about this at previous meetings. The second motion on the floor, oh wait, I guess we have to vote on that. All those in favor? That's unanimous. The second motion on the floor is that an electronic public hearing be scheduled for the regular meeting of council on Monday, September 25th, 2023 at 7 p.m. That's moved by McBain and seconded by Royer. All those in favor? Any opposed? Are you in favor, Don?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So that's carried unanimously. Moving on to City of Kimberley Recreation Facility Rental Rates Bylaw. And the motion on the floor is that council give first, second, and third readings to City of Kimberley Recreation Facilities Rental Rates Bylaw number 2748, 2023. And I have a mover. Stephen and Sue. So that's Councillor Royer and Councillor Cairns. Do we have a presentation for this?
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. So the motion on the floor is to approve the updated rental rates bylaw for parks and facilities. As you may have noticed, the last increase to this was in 2021. So it's been a bit of time since this increase. So the intent of this one is to get us caught up to where we kind of are currently now and have an increase for next year while we await the results of that parks and facility master plan and take a deep dive into kind of where we stand in terms of rental rates and recovery rates, and then bring back a report next year once we have the outcome of that parks and facility master plan to have a discussion on kind of where we stand currently with recovery rates and if we're happy with that current model, comparing to other municipalities and recommendations from that report to get a direction moving forward in terms of fees and rental rates and cost recoveries. And if there's any questions on the current proposed changes, please let me know.
Do we have any questions? Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, not so much a question as a comment, I guess, Nick, and that is that, you know, the recovery rates on these 4 buildings are really, really low, and I don't think there's any expectation on anybody's part that there's going to be substantial recovery. So the actual recovery rate and the amount we're bringing back is less important than making sure that we keep competitive and keep on top of what others are doing and make sure that our access to these remain affordable, but within the context of, you know, fair charges for the facilities. But you know, with the recovery rates where they are, I mean, I don't think there's any illusion that recovery rates are going to be driving where we set the fees.
Yeah, similar note, I would hate to see usership go down on facilities that are underutilized. And that's just a general comment. But as long as that's not happening, I totally support these changes.
Yes, thanks for those comments and duly noted. And maybe I presented that incorrectly. The goal isn't to get 100% cost recovery rate. It's more just to look at kind of where we stand currently and have the discussion with Mayor and Council on what we want that to look like. What is our important drivers with respect to our parks and facilities? Do we want to move to more of a user pay model, or do we want to be ensuring that it's equal opportunity for everybody and those sorts of things? So yeah, thank you.
Any further questions? Or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Second Motion on the floor is that council direct staff to bring a new fee structure report forward for consideration at an upcoming meeting in 2024. Can I get a mover? McBain and Sue Cairns? And all those in favor, or would we like to discuss this? I can't. Any comments? No. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Moving on to zoning amendment bylaw number 2747. The motion on the floor is that council adopt bylaw number 2747, City of Kimberley zoning bylaw number 1850, amendment number 169, 2023. Discussion on this? That's Councillor Royer moved and McBain seconded. And Troy, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, I can just speak briefly on this one. It's pretty straightforward. At previous meeting in July, council approved first, second, and third readings of this after giving direction to staff to give notice of first reading bylaw at the June meeting. Notices were sent out and published in the newspaper, and no comments have been received. The Ministry of Transportation has given their okay to proceed with identifying no concerns on this bylaw. So it's in order for council to adopt and move forward. And this is to rezone the property at 419 Alpine from R3 to R1.
Thanks, Troy. Any comments from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Next on the agenda is the development permit 2022-012 Forest Crown. The motion on the floor is that council approve development permit 2022-012 for phase 4 of the Forest Crown neighborhood to allow development of 41 residential lots on the land legally described as Lot A, District Lots 2379 and 3064, Kootenai District Plan NEP 85304 PID 027293297, as shown in the plans attached to the report dated August 24th, 2023, from the Manager of Planning and subject to registration of Section 219 covenant prior to final subdivision approval to ensure awareness of the wildfire hazard conditions in perpetuity and set requirements for landscaping, vegetation management, and exterior design and finishes of buildings in accordance with the recommended Fire Smart guidelines. Could you comment on this, Troy? Actually, I guess we could get it on the floor first. Do you have a mover? That's Councillor Royer and seconded by Councillor Cairns.
Yes, thank you. I'll just try to give it a bit of an overview here, and certainly if there's any questions from council, be happy to help with that. So this is proposed development phase 4 of Forest Crown. This particular section of Forest Crown was originally, the parent parcel for it was originally subdivided in 2007, and a subsequent subdivision application in the months after to create initial subdivision of 40 lots was applied for and had sort of initial review and feedback, and then they ended up deciding not to proceed at that time. This is the kind of southeast corner of the Forest Crown neighborhood that overlooks the sort of the corner ridge of Marysville and the St. Mary River Valley there, overlooking Purcell Gulf. If anyone's familiar with that area, there is existing, the primary water and sewer mains do extend through that parent parcel. And this so it kind of finishes off that corner of Forest Crown and creates another loop or crescent road there. So there's some water and sewer extension and storm management as well. That's proposed, or that's part of this this section. The current application will create 41 freehold lots for future development. The proposal also involves extension of the paved Forest Crown pathway network. And there's also a plan in here for designation of parkland parcel for future park improvement there. The development permit here is required in accordance with the official community plan, falling as a residential development permit area, but also the natural hazards wildfire hazard area. As part of the application process there, the applicant has provided an initial wildfire hazard assessment report that owing largely to previous treatment work that had been done on this parcel and surrounding lands, had a fairly low low to moderate hazard, but there was some sections of the property that were identified as moderate to high. And just this summer, there's been some treatment work completed on that. The post-treatment assessment report is not quite finished, but we're anticipating that very soon, and not anticipating any problems with that. Regardless, we'll make sure that that is received and satisfactorily meets all the requirements prior to final approval of subdivision. And one of the conditions that's been applied to previous phases in Forest Crown, as well as other newer development areas that are on the edge of the community like this, is the requirement for registration of a wildfire covenant, which is kind of a multi-purpose tool. One is just to make sure that all successive purchasers of any properties in there are aware of the wildfire hazard conditions, and it also the more recent version of that really lays out kind of all of the fire smart requirements for building construction and landscaping and just treatment of the yards there. So it's just a way to try to help make sure that there's initial and ongoing recognition of the fire smart requirements and maintenance, ongoing maintenance of those areas on each parcel. Some of council will recall in the last phase, phase 6, that's the Ponderosa Drive, Ponderosa View area. There was 20 some lots there, but one of the requirements of that phase was that the development partners create a emergency egress route, a secondary emergency egress route. So that was designed and constructed as part of phase 6. This, where that egress road sort of connects to the Forest Crown roadway network, will be finished off and completed here with construction of phase 4. So that'll meet the road network with a new access point between proposed lots 26 and 27. And that'll be an access controlled egress point. It will double as a walking or cycling path, but will be unavailable for day-to-day use, and only available and used for emergency egress or access if needed. But yeah, the other part of this is, as I mentioned, the pathway network is being extended. This will be, I think, quite an exceptional section of trail and pathway in the neighborhood there. This because it's around the perimeter and the outside the lots, and it's on the hillside parcel that belongs to the city. So about right at the crest of that hillside, and there'll be tremendous views all along from that trail. So I think it'll be quite a popular trail within that neighborhood. There's also one of the attachments here in the report is from the development partners identifying a larger parkland dedication. And well, actually a couple different pieces of parkland to dedicate, but the primary one, kind of more of a centralized neighborhood park that's proposed. We've had some review internally with staff and recognize that makes, I think, some good sense to have more of a centralized kind of neighborhood park there. The particular details of how that park will be, or park playground will be improved, is still to be determined. Like I said, there is a concept plan attached there, proposing kind of a mixture for appropriate play spaces for for a diverse range of children's ages. So some younger playground space, some small sports field area, for soccer, that kind of stuff, or basketball courts that could possibly be utilized for an ice rink in the winter. They'll still be able to retain quite a bit of natural, semi-natural, has had some treatment work done to it, but some natural forest buffer in between the backs of the lots there in the Phase 5 area, and of course be integrated with the trail network there. So we recommending council approve the development permit for this phase to allow subdivision to proceed to final approval. So including the sort of approval in principle of the parkland concept there. We have shared that park plan concept with the consultants working on the Parks and Facility Master Plan, and we're anticipating that we'll be gathering some feedback about the kind of the needs in that community, in that neighborhood for just how that park space should be improved, and hopefully it'll help to align the needs of that neighborhood with how that park can be developed and improved to meet everybody's needs. So I'll leave it at that in case there's any questions.
Thanks, Troy. Any questions or comments? Mr. Mayor first, and then, yeah.
Thanks, Troy. So a question with regard to the covenant and FireSmart. So are we basically adding this covenant to all of the new development areas that are going to that are coming into, or future areas that will come into development?
Yeah, it's for most of all the new development areas, especially anything that's around the edge of the community. So more recent examples is the Sunflower Drive, the development sites near the campground area. Those ones in particular come to mind. The previous phases of Fourth Crown have the wildfire covenant. Sullivan Landing, for example, has that. I'm sure there's others that I could think of with more time, but yes, it is a new requirement, and it in the official community plan, there's the wildfire hazard DP area is identified by map, and so any new development within that designated area is required to either assess and treat, and in most cases, if there's going to be additional development, to have the covenant put in place. And again, the whole idea is to make sure that that wildfire risk is communicated to all future purchasers of that property.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think kind of the sleeper side of this is making sure that the residents that are moving in understand what this FireSmart program is about, and that they have to landscape to that level. It's I don't know whether it's surprising or not, but there are a tremendous number of folks in Kimberley that still don't get what the fire smarting is about, and certainly haven't gotten with the program. And I think the more we can get that education out there, the better.
For sure. This is one way, because it's registered against title, it really improves the chances that those purchasers at least have a basic initial introduction, and then combined with any other education and awareness initiatives should really help to spread that awareness.
Yeah, I want to, being myself, being FireSmart certified, I agree with Don. Like it's a really eye opener for a lot of people who don't know what FireSmart is about. And I will continue to encourage everybody to go FireSmart, because you got over a 90% chance of you saving your home instead of 10%. So I really like those odds. And with the fires that are going on everywhere in BC, this is the time to really think about it for the future.
Councillor Cairns?
So I'm just wondering on the FireSmart topic, if we have any, I know through RDEK, they have like FireSmart neighborhoods, you can get certified as a FireSmart neighborhood, and I'm not aware that there are any in Kimberley. Are we kind of, is that something that we're getting involved with, or is it just very much an individual thing? And I'm not sure who I'm asking the question to, but maybe to, okay. Thank you.
Well, if you want to become part of the neighborhood fire recognition program, you just call your fire chief, because it used to be me, but now that I came on council, I'm no longer available because it'd be conflict of interest. So you have to contact the chief directly, Will Booth. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'll just note that my neighborhood has Fire Smart certified. Just so you know, there's some there.
Thanks, Sandra. Any other questions or comments? I did have one question just around the access to Forest Crown, and if there's any point where is that the final design for the access to Forest Crown, the current access, or is there any plans of upgrading that? Do we contact Ministry of Transportation whenever we go through this development permit and check on numbers? Is that how it works?
Yeah, there's been multiple conversations with Ministry of Transportation about future phases of Forest Crown and about the access to the highway specifically. I think it depends a little bit on kind of what's proposed in future phases. In fact, part of the attachments here do show kind of a phasing plan for the next 3 or 4 phases there, which is essentially more of the same. There is a section proposed kind of north of the existing highway access connection. And of course, anyone that's familiar with some of the background, there's a much larger concept plan for Forest Crown, which is it's quite a large parcel. Would really really add a lot of developed space to the community. Much more. I think at the present pace of construction there's probably decades to go before we see some of that build out. But even with the next 3 or 4 phases, there's probably another decade or so of building there. Depending on lots of factors, of course. But anyway, in some of those conversations with the ministry, we have talked and flagged the issue of future upgrades to that intersection and just kind of what that trigger is. It's not super well defined at this point, but I think all parties have agreed to just kind of continue the dialogue and kind of gauge where things are going, how that's working, and I think also has to factor in, what else is going on elsewhere in the community and how that contributes to the functioning of that intersection there. Part of that overall concept is as a secondary highway connection at some point. When and if we'll get there is way too early to tell at this point, but there may be intersection upgrades required to the existing intersection at some point in the future, but at this time we don't have a firm date or a firm trigger point for that.
Thanks for that. And on a similar note, are there any other things coming up the pipe for triggers as far as water system or any major things that future developments could trigger within this broader Forest Crown build-out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Part of why we have the kind of concept plan for the next few phases there was to try to get a better handle on what's coming next in future phases, and that's just related to our conversations with the project partners there about water supply and ability to serve that with what's required. There is some off-site upgrades that will be triggered prior to a next phase, whichever phase that is, I guess. But it was determined based on the review completed to date that there's sufficient capacity, and I should probably defer to Nick here to speak more accurately about this, but basically the current supply and setup is sufficient for the needs for this current phase under review now and the previous phases, but that prior to next phases there's going to be some upgrades required at the bottom of the hill where there's some infrastructure at St. Mary Lake Road there around the chlorination of the water and just upgrading, replacement of some sections of water mains and stuff there. So,
thanks. Any other questions?
Add to that, Nick, to clarify.
That was the answer I was looking for. So,
good.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Development permit 2023-04, 99 Fernie Street. We have a motion on the floor that council approve development permit 2023-004 to allow for the development of 6 duplex units as part of the lands legally described as lot 3700 Kootenay District Excerpt Part included in Plan 2412 and civically known as 99 Fernie Street, subject to the following conditions: to obtain a street occupancy permit prior to beginning any off-site works affecting any roads or other municipal lands, to obtain an access permit prior to the construction of the driveway connections, to obtain a building permit prior to the placement of any buildings, foundations, or structures, to provide the following information to satisfaction of the senior manager operations prior to building permit application and beginning construction of any civil works, final civil design drawings, including cross-sections, profiles, and details, all on-site and off-site works, site grading and draining plan, and snow management plan. Provide a statutory right-of-way plan and document of the stormwater outlet for registration at the Land Title Office prior to final subdivision approval, registration of section 219 covenant prior to final subdivision approval to ensure the awareness of the wildfire hazard conditions in perpetuity, and set requirements for landscaping, vegetation management, and exterior design and finishes of buildings in accordance with the recommended Fire Smart guidelines. Can I have a mover? I believe that was Royer first and McBain second. But that could be that I'm just like looking that way. Yeah. Any discussion on this? Do you have a few words for us on this one, Troy?
Yes, I can provide a bit of an overview. Council may recall previous rezoning of this site, and prior to that, it had been rezoned initially from the R2 zone to an R12 zone, and then after adoption of the housing availability and affordability amendments in last September, the site was rezoned again back to R2. And with that, their development plan for townhouse development changed to a combination of duplex development with some accessory dwellings. So what's proposed here is a total of 17 units overall. And this is on the north side of Fernie Street, kind of between the what would be the extension of 6th Ave and 8th Ave. These 6 lots that will be created here, each will have a half duplex unit with an interior accessory unit, as well as a detached accessory unit. So 5 of the 6 lots will have 4 units in total on it, and there's 1 unit that's a slightly smaller lot at the end that'll have 3 units on it. That's where the 17 comes from. Been back and forth with the proponents on this one on a few details, and staff certainly comfortable moving ahead with this and recommending development permit approval, subject again to the requirement for wildfire hazard covenant to be registered, and we can make sure that that's in place through the subdivision approval process. We also have a preliminary servicing plan that we've provided some feedback on and just need some additional details to be confirmed there, but no significant concerns. The proponents have addressed the majority of the concerns there. Again, that relates to site grading and drainage and snow management as well. So just a few details that we can sort out at the staff level there if there are conditions on the DP. Yeah, again, just it's another good example of ability to see development of actually some quite unique development. I don't think we've seen anything quite like this yet, but it's a good way to add some extra density without a major impact on the community infrastructure. Existing Fernie Street Road will provide access, and some water and sewer upgrades within Fernie Street there will help to ensure that things are properly serviced. And like I said, some of the previous fuel treatment work on site and combined with the registration of the covenant will help to ensure that those properties are maintained and fire smart well into the future.
Yeah, Councillor McBain.
Yeah, just a comment. Thanks, Troy. Yeah, comment on the design of the development, and I kind of echo your sentiment, Troy. I think it's at least in concept here, or in this initial design, it kind of hits all the marks of what we're trying to accomplish and what the planning team has done here. So I'm really excited to see kind of this new style of dwelling, and I really do hope it's successful. I mean, I think it's a really good use of space, and I kind of see it as, you know, the future for, you know, small towns moving forward. So yeah, really excited to give this the go ahead. Thanks, Troy.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, thanks, Woody. So thank you, Troy. It is kind of to echo Councillor McBain's comments. This design for this development is a direct result of the densification bylaw that we brought out last year. There was already, as you know, for a period of time, a design in place for Fernie Street. And when we brought that bylaw in, the developers got quite excited about it and completely redesigned to conform to that densification bylaw. The other thing that's really important about this particular one is that the majority, if not all of these units are going to be rental. And as everybody knows, we are under extreme pressure in the community for rental doors. So it is really, really good to finally see this development underway. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. So next we have development permit 2023-05, 10 Jim Ogilvie Way, previously 2900 Rotary Drive. And the motion on the floor is that council approve development variance permit 2023-005 to allow the proposed multi-unit residential development of the property legally described as Parcel A, Block 4, District Lot 480-44, Kootenai District Plan 1707, and civically addressed as 10 Jim Ogilvie Way, previously 2900 Rotary Drive, with variances to the following sections of zoning bylaw 1850, 6.10, 5, to relax the requirement that all bike parking spaces be provided within a building to allow a maximum of 40 covered only rack spaces and 24 open rack storage spaces, and to relax 7.05 to allow the accessory buildings and structures to be situated as close as 0 meters to the rear east property line to facilitate the construction of a detached bicycle storage building and a waste/recycle enclosure as accessory buildings and structures to the principal multiple unit residential building. Can I have a mover for this one? Sue, Cairns, and Jason McBain. Any discussion? Did you want to say a few words, Troy?
Yes, I can say a few things just to clarify on this one. Council will recall the first stage of consideration of this proposal was done at the last meeting in July. And at the same time, council actually approved the development permit for the principal building. And that was an effort to allow them to keep moving on getting their building permit application in place for the principal building. And we have in fact received that application shortly after that meeting and should be close to getting that approved here any day now, I think. With regards to the proposed variances, staff did give notice as required, and we did receive one letter that was received this evening as a late item. Just as a refresher, the variance, the two variances apply only to the accessory structures on the site or proposed on the site, mostly relating to bicycle storage, but also for the waste and recycle closure. The siting of those structures, some of them will be are proposed to be sited as close as 0 meters to the east or the rear property line. Staff is supportive of that, considering the site conditions there, and it's not anticipated that there'll be future development on that adjacent property that's in between the subject site here and the North Star Trail, and that's due in part to the site grading and I think there's some bedrock outcrops and that kind of thing on that site. So it's kind of unlikely that that section is going to be see any future development. As far as the bike parking, the specifics of the enclosed bike parking spaces, I think that's an area where we're probably going to want to do a little bit of review on those bike parking requirements, just as we're starting to see more and more proposals on kind of the multi-unit residential side. I think we can probably just tweak those regulations a little bit to kind of build in a little bit more flexibility for just kind of how those spaces can be provided, and try to, again, balance flexibility for the project and needs of future residents there. So, but anyway, in this current proposal, rather than have all of the spaces enclosed in buildings or a building, this would allow for some of those spaces to be open rack storage spaces. So staff's recommending approval of this. As I mentioned, we did have the one letter from a nearby property owner and resident who did state in their proposal, or in their submission, that sorry, I'm just going back to that here. They, I think their words are that they support the development and the variances being requested, but they did have some concerns and questions about the project overall that I did provide an answer to those earlier today, and some of those were just around questions around the intersection of Rotary Drive and Jim Ogilvie Way, and we commented about the proposed changes to the Black Bear Crescent intersection with Jim Ogilvie Way. Questions about parking and screening and snow management, the drainage, and the fire hydrant, fire suppression system. So haven't heard anything back from them yet, but I think we've probably addressed them. But if they have further questions, we'll certainly do our best to help them out there. But I think to summarize, they didn't seem to have any concerns about the specific variances being proposed and under consideration tonight. So we recommend that council proceed with those.
Thanks, Troy. Councillor McBain?
Yeah, and I saw your responses, Troy, to the residents there who, friends of mine, and they've been there in that area for a long time, so legitimate concerns, but I think you addressed them well. The one on the light pollution, I think that will, remains to be seen, kind of see how that goes. I think everybody in some, there's some parts of town you just have to, you may live under a street light or something like that, and it may be unfortunate, but see how that goes. But what I really want to comment on is I like the, what I heard at the beginning, that I like the openness to the flexibility on how we deal with, with bike storage and some of these things that are, I don't want to say they're new issues, but they're developing issues where, communities are moving, to how people transport and get around. And on, if anyone's had their eyes open, there's been a pretty big increase in bike use. So, but with that, how they're stored, how, people utilize those spaces is still kind of, developing. So I like the fact that the planning department is willing to have some openness to the flexibility there, and really it'd be interesting to see what developers come up with, and it might help shape, the way we see things. So I appreciate the openness to the flexibility, because it's certainly not a new phenomenon, but just the volume of people utilizing bicycles and other methods of transportation is increasing. So.
Thank you. Very good points. And if I may just kind of further on that, yeah, I think when we first put in the bike parking space requirements, there was some e-bikes around and they were on the radar, but the rapid growth in that area over the last few years, 3 to 5 years, has been exceptional, and it's a real game changer for transportation in big and small communities, and especially communities like ours where there's a lot of elevation change between neighborhoods, and for the most part, many of those bikes are quite a bit heavier than sort of regular bikes, or some of the higher end trail bikes or or even road bikes that we've seen in the past. And so it does create some challenges for storage and safe, convenient, secure storage to maneuver those bigger or heavier bikes around. And I think, yeah, so we have some work to do to try to find the right balance and build in some flexibility there. But and again, the objective there, I think, is really just trying to make sure there's a mix of kind of longer term, secure, safe, convenient storage, and then also some shorter term kind of come and go quickly, day-to-day stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple questions around the bike storage. Just on a related note with the use of electric bikes, I'm just curious if there's charging included in this bike storage spaces, and also whether like how secure these storage spaces are, because I think originally it was proposed to be within the building, which would be highly secure. Just making sure that the needs of the people who are living in this apartment building are being met while changing this with this development permit or with this variance permit.
Yeah, I think in short, not all of the spaces will have electric charging capability, but I think most will, and I think all will have the secure or lockability aspect to it. But like as proposed here, not all will be enclosed in a building, but they'll still be able to be locked up and in some cases partially covered, that kind of thing. So again, that's trying to find that balance of making sure we have parking spaces available and that mix of kind of longer term secure stuff and the shorter term stuff that might be come and go, but it still needs to be lockable and secureable while you're inside grabbing lunch or whatever the case may be. So.
Yeah, and my concern is that some of these bikes are worth more than people's vehicles now. So just making sure that we have something that's actually secure and not something that a bike thief can come along with a grinder and run off with a brand new bike.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, all of them will be lockable. I think they'll all be clustered together in behind the building where that's not as kind of in like not as visible as it would be in front or on the sides, and some ability for residents to keep an eye on stuff back there. And it's mixed in with some outdoor amenity space as well. So there'll be from time to time people, residents of the site hanging around and using the site and keeping an eye on stuff while they're out there.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Next, under new business, we have a notice of motion from Councillor Cairns around policy and regulatory considerations regarding future drive-through services and gas station developments. And I'll just read through the motion here. Whereas Council deferred indefinitely discussion related to the recommendation that Council direct staff to prepare a report and recommendations toward policy and regulatory alternatives regarding future drive-through services and gas station developments at the February 13th, 2023 meeting. And whereas Council has not set a date for the discussion to take place, therefore it be resolved that Council consider the following recommendation: that Council direct staff to prepare a report and recommendations toward policy and regulatory considerations regarding future drive-through services and gas station developments. Do I have a mover for this? Sue, the seconder? Royer? So that's on the table and discussion. Did you want to say a few words to this?
Sure, I'll say a few words. Thanks for doing all the work of reading everything out. Really appreciate it. So thanks, and I want to raise this recommendation that hasn't been discussed. So I'd like to see, personally, I'd like to see recommendations based on up-to-date knowledge and data for guidelines and conditions for these types of uses. For instance, where what would be required considering impacts and compatibility with neighboring uses. Thinking of things like locations, setbacks, given air quality considerations, noise, emissions, broader shifts that are being made given climate emergency and emissions reductions targets and policy. So I think it would be helpful to have some consistency, clarity, and transparency up front. And this would be a benefit to the community and to applicants who will know what would be required of them in relation to these uses before they submit an application, how and where they might fit in. It would strengthen our OCP, save everyone time and money. So wanted to put it on the table for discussion. Thanks.
Councillor McBain?
Yeah, I can appreciate where Councillor Cairns is coming from this. I guess my only concern with this would be staff time usage. Just given the number of likely applicants that we would have that this would apply to. I guess I support it in principle, but I guess my concern, and I would maybe defer to Scott on this on staff time, and maybe a question to Troy too, is if we were going to go through this type of exercise, could this be tied to some existing guidelines or bylaws that we already have, and this could be some kind of addendum or amendment to that, or would this have to be a standalone thing? I mean, and so I guess I'll go to my first question for Scott with respect to staff time, and what your initial thoughts are on this, kind of relating to my concerns.
We are short-staffed still in the planning department, so I appreciate the question. There's no firm timeline in here, so I think if Troy and I are on the same page, which we are most of the time, this is something that I think staff would like to see before the next application comes in for a drive-through or a gas station. I'm not anticipating any in the near future, but I think it's something staff would like to do. It would have been very helpful to have in advance of our previous discussion, which is why staff recommended it in the first place. So I think as long as there's some realism about the timeline, you know, I think we can get this done before the next application comes in for a drive-through or a gas station. But don't hold your breath that it would be in the next few months. As we can see in tonight's agenda, it's planning. We also have a housing crisis, and we are trying to meet that by approving housing applications. But I think staff is capable of prioritizing it accordingly.
Yeah, and further to that, thanks, Scott. I would definitely say, and I hope, Sue, you would probably agree, kind of to your point there, Scott. I would not want to see, I'd like to see something like this done, and I appreciate the sentiments there. But if it means deferring, you know, an issue that is, you know, working towards alleviating some of the housing issues that we have, to me, is in what you just said, Scott, the priority is going to be towards housing. And that's really what I wanted to hear if we're going to move forward with something like this.
Thanks, Councillor McBain. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Sorry, I think that Troy had just had a comment there. Let's just go with that first, and then we'll go to you, Mr. McCormick.
Thank you. Just wanted for that. Yeah, I mean, that's what we do all the time is kind of prioritize and we always put an emphasis on all of the current development projects, make sure those are moving along. And there's, you know, at any time, various other sort of special projects and requests that we're working on. This is something I think that, you know, although it's going to take some time to work on, it's kind of investment in time and energy in the future, save some time and energy in the future, if there's going to be other proposals. One part of your question there was about, I mean, we'll see what if we're given direction to proceed with this, we'll see what that ultimately ends up as. But I think it's most likely would be amendments to existing bylaws, or might be somewhat of a separate policy document, but it'll all go hand in hand and be all part of the same review. So.
Thanks, Troy. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that, Woody. So council will recall when this came up. I'm trying to remember now. It was quite some time ago. With capacity, staff capacity was the issue, and the only thing that's changed since then is that we have one less planner. And as much as you know, I'm sure staff you know, has the ability to juggle. The fact is that when council places specific demands on staff, those demands take precedence over other things. And there is no clear demand at this point in time for this. I think we need to stay focused on the housing side of things. And at such time as it makes sense for us to bring this forward, again, we can bring it forward. But at this point in time, I really don't see a need to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, why don't you make that now?
Sure. I just, given that there's no timeline on this, I just, I'd like us all just to take a moment to consider how much time went kind of down the tubes because we didn't have this before. So, I think that's a really important consideration here is in my opinion, a lot of time would have been saved for everybody. A very significant amount of time if we'd actually had some policy guidance upfront.
Councillor McBain, and yeah, we'll limit this. This
Yep.
is your last chance here.
Just try and sum it up. So I think what we're all getting at is, at least where I'm at, is working on this off the side of the desk is fine. And if something comes up that, if we cleared the slate and we started working on this and, some housing development came in, this is going to have to get pushed to the side. And as long as that's clear and as long as the priorities are open enough to shifting, if something comes in where it would take precedent over this and it gets pushed to the side, then I'm fine.
Thanks, Councillor McBain. I did have a couple comments just around the staff time issue. This is a recommendation coming from staff specifically. And it's the type of things that planning departments, it's the type of work that's enjoyable. It's the type of work that can be put on the back of the desk and done when time is available. And I don't see it as something that's going to get in the way of development permits or in the way of any of the other regular duties of our staff. And it can wait until we've hired out our planning department. So with that in mind, I do support this motion. Any other last comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of this motion? And opposed? So that's Councillor Cairns, Councillor McGuire, Councillor McBain, and Councillor Royer in support. And Mr. Mayor and Councillor Sandra opposed. Number 2 here is the request for concurrence, proposed 50mm telecommunications tower. Whereas Freedom Mobile proposes to erect a 50mm wireless telecommunications tower and accessory structure on lands described as Freedom Mobile site, a whole bunch of numbers. What did I say? Did I? Okay, well, let's start from the top then. Whereas Freedom Mobile proposes to erect a 50-meter wireless telecommunications tower and accessory structure on lands described as the Freedom Mobile site, BCB0006A, coordinates, it gives the coordinates, PID 016481534, known municipal address, Kimberley, BC. And whereas proponents of telecommunications towers are regulated by Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, ISED, on behalf of the Government of Canada, and as part of their approval, ISED requires proponents to consult with land use authorities as provided for in CPC 2-0-03. Do I have to read all these whereases? Okay, I'm going to skip the whereases. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the corporate officer be instructed to advise Freedom Mobile that Freedom Mobile has satisfactorily completed its consultation with the City of Kimberley. The City of Kimberley is satisfied with Freedom Mobile public Mobile's public consultation process and does not require any further consultation with the public. And the City of Kimberley concurs with Freedom Mobile's proposal to construct a wireless telecommunications facility, provided it is constructed sustainably in accordance with the plans submitted to the City of Kimberley dated July 6th, 2023. Can I get a mover? Councillor Cairns? And Councillor McBain? If you're not moving, if you're not a seconder, I can get somebody else. Okay, it's on the table. Councillor McBain.
Yeah, I guess my only question is, you know, I know there's been discussion in the past of you know, potential residential development up in that area. Now, who knows if that would ever happen? My question to you though, Troy, is does this, by placing this communications tower there, does that limit the ability, likelihood, what have you of you know, some future development up on that hill? And if so, is there ability or is there a way in this agreement with Freedom Mobile that you know, the tower could be moved at some point in the future?
I don't think it would be necessary to consider relocating the tower. There's a substantial amount of land there that's you know, designated for future development. And not all of it is suitable for redevelopment or for development. There's some, you know, steep slope sections and other whatever sensitive sites, I guess. And it is what has been proposed in many years ago now as a kind of a mix of residential and some sort of neighborhood commercial stuff as well. But I think there's more than enough land there to accommodate a pretty extensive amount of development. And not to mention, you know, all the other areas we have in town and the capacity and ability we have to you know, allow for more intense and dense redevelopment within existing neighborhoods. So it'll be a long time into the future before we have that problem to deal with. The other point I would make is this tower is like there's 2 towers up there already, and this is clustered right in tight with those. So I mean, I should never say never, but it seems unlikely to me that, you know, we'll be having to sort of consider relocating those ever, I guess. But there probably be newer, better technology by then, I think.
No, you've answered my question. That's fair
Yeah,
enough.
yeah,
Thanks, Troy.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Financial update report, January 1st to June 30th, 2023. Motion on the floor is that council receive for information the financial update report dated January 1st to June 30th, 2023, as attached to the Chief Financial Officer's staff report dated August 21st, 2023. Can I have a mover? Moved by Jason, seconded by Sue. Cairns? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Item number 4, procurement report, January 1st to June 30th, 2023. The motion on the floor is that council received for information the procurement report, January 1st to June 30th, 2023, as attached to the Chief Financial Officer's staff report dated August 21st, 2023. Can I have a mover? That's moved by Councillor Royer and seconded by Councillor Cairns. Any discussion on this? Mr. Mayor?
So a question for Jim. Jim's there tonight, right? No?
No, he's not.
Okay. Well, let me ask the question anyway. I'm curious for all of these contracted amounts as we go through. These were the contracted amounts, were these unamended? I'm just curious what the actual amounts of the contracts have come through at versus what the amount, the original amount contracted. What kind of inflation are we seeing with these, with these projects?
Scott, could you speak to that?
Yeah, I'll fill in for the CFO this evening. Any changes to these contracts amounts would come back to council for amendment. So I would just suggest you go back and you look at the various projects. And if staff has come back for an increase, there's usually a short report with an explanation of what the factors were. But as for tonight's report, that is not broken out.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Scott. I know that there have been, I recall a few that have in fact come back, but I mean, it's a pretty extensive report, and I'm not even sure where I would find that. I will defer the question for a later time when Jim's available.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Mr. Mayor, were you opposed or in favor of that motion?
Oh, in favor.
Thanks. So that's carried unanimously. Finally, check run 2023-44-45. The City of Kimberley check run number 2023-44-45 and 2023-47-49 in the amounts of $332,729.79 and $499,877.75 be approved as paid. Can I get a mover? That's Councillor McBain and Councillor Cairns. Any discussion on this or comments?
I could just note that everything is pretty normal business. There's nothing extraordinary in these checks.
Thanks for that, Sandra. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Correspondence under action items, we have an email from Tab Young, Deputy Corporate Officer from Peace River Regional District, dated July 31st, requesting a letter of support. I read through the letter. I didn't see any request for a letter of support. I believe this is a motion for UBCM that we will have an opportunity to vote on if we're attending. So I don't, any discussion on any of the, on this item? Further?
Should we just move to receive it?
Yeah, I think we'll just move to receive it with the other information items.
Okay. I'll make that motion then. Woody?
Okay, is there any comments on any of the other, or I guess we can, yeah, let's move first. So yeah, we have a mover, Councillor McBain. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Royer. And any discussion on any of these information items? Councillor Cairns?
Yeah, I have actually two separate comments. So one is there's an email from Keith Atkinson, the chair of the BC Forest Practices Board, and I wanted to draw attention to the letter in the report from the Forest Practices Board. It's highlighting the need for awareness, coordination, cooperation across all levels of government by policymakers and staff to support changes to how forests are managed to reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfire. So direct it just, I've read through the report and it's, it's right in line, right in keeping with the kind of work that we've been doing here in Kimberley, but it really speaks to the full paradigm shift. And so, looking at now the direct cost of suppressing wildfire is now averaging $1 billion a year in Western Canada. And it really highlights that need for a complete change where all levels of government are working together and redesigning based on new objectives around managing wildfire. And so I just wanted to raise it just in the context of Kimberley as well. And our wildlife or our wildfire urban interface, and raises for me the community wildfire protection plan. So I'd like to have a fuel update, get a clear sense of what's being done, where we're at, what's coming up, and what the key challenges are. And so we've got, we're working on that to get something organized with Bob Gray. My recommendation would be that be recorded for the public, because right now on the city on the city website is from the plans are still, excellent plans, but the last information is dated 2003 and 2009, even though there has been really significant work underway. So it would be great to have more information available. I'm hearing from lots of people that'd like to know what the status of the treatments are around town. So that was my point related to this correspondence. And then I do have the other correspondence item was the email from Stephen Molesky, who I believe is here tonight. So thanks for joining us, Stephen. And so it was on riparian areas, cottonwood trees, green spaces, and the bike park expansion. And Stephen raises excellent points and questions that I'm really interested in exploring and understanding some answers to. I mainly want to understand pathway forward. So there's been a lot of good work accomplished on restoring Mark Creek in the past, and how do we keep improving it? How do we set ourselves up for quality stewardship going forward? I understand work in the past was accomplished through partnerships, and I'm hearing from lots of people who want to work on this now. So I'm really interested in thoughts around how we move this forward.
Thanks, Councillor Cairns. Councillor McBain.
My thoughts on it. Thanks, Sue, for bringing this to the floor, and thanks to Mr. Molesky for sending us an email. I think Sue, you raise a good point. I think it's an issue like dealing with the riparian zones, or our one main riparian zone like Mark Creek coming through town. I think it's something that we don't necessarily, I don't think we should feel like we have to take it on ourselves. I think we should be looking for those types of partnerships and lean on some experts. So I think it would be I'd be curious to hear what kind of how we could do that just from staff. I think just having the discussion is just the first step. I don't think we have to solve this problem tomorrow, but I would be curious to hear from I guess maybe, I don't know if it would be Nick or Scott, just on how we can, I don't know, maybe be better informed with respect to our riparian zones in town.
Are you asking for them to respond directly now?
I guess they don't have to. No, I don't think there's an urgency to this, but I think it would be something that we should discuss, moving forward. That was just a comment, really.
Thanks for that, Councillor McBain. Yeah, similarly, I think that there are.
Sorry, if I could just harken back to when we first talked about what they were doing with the bike park. The purpose of removing those trees was that they were rotting in the interior and they were a danger to the kids that were playing down there, and there was a need to remove them. And it was the intention of improving the bike park so that they had a safe place to play along with the part of the park that was already in existence. I think if you go down and look at those stumps and look at the wood that those people have been taking away, the whole center of those trees is eroded and it was rotten and they weren't good pieces of wood. That was the outcome of why they took them in the first place. So I mean, it's all well and good to look after the riparian piece of it, but by the same token, we don't want them falling on people either. And I know there's been so much work done with the creek up above. When I was a child, if anybody went into that creek, you would have thought it was going to eat your feet off from the runoff from the mine. And Teck took that creek and actually moved it to a different route to get things going again. And now the kids are fishing there, and now there's plants along the side, and now it's got a pretty good home. When you take out some dead trees once in a while because it's going to endanger other kids, I think you have to pay attention to the fact that there's also a city involved here where people are present. It's, you know, the riparian side of it isn't going to be 100% everybody's top priority. Sometimes safety has to be a piece of the priority. So I appreciate that you want to study it. Go ahead and spend money on that or bring advice to other people. But gee whiz, you guys, use some common sense on things.
Yeah, can I just say a few words first? And then we'll move to you. So yeah, I agree with you, Sandra, that there is some element of safety here and that there is some element of managing our risk as a city. And at the same time, we could do better on riparian protection. We could have policies that are in place that kind of guide us with riparian areas. We could have more trees in general in town. I mean, it's a difficult thing to do because we're balancing a budget, we're balancing the costs associated with planting trees and maintaining them, and we're balancing the safety of our citizens. And all these things, you know, need to be balanced. But that doesn't mean that we can't put an effort in. I do think that it has some merit to protecting riparian zones and expanding those riparian zones over the years too. I think of the Mark Creek Trail and how it goes along a road for a substantial length of time, a road that's not a primary access to anything. So those are just some general comments for me. I'll pass it over to you, Councillor McBain.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, this is not supposed to be an adversarial type of discussion. My support for, you know, having a discussion on this is just to have better understanding of it. And I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on it. And I do recognize that, you know, there was, you know, some of these trees, if they're designed to be removed for safety reasons, so be it. That's part of what having a better understanding and leaning on experts is all about. Maybe there's more that need to go. Maybe there's more that we need to supplement. So let's not make it an adversarial type of conversation. All I was talking about and in supporting Sue was to just have some better understanding on it. Maybe we have some experts that come in here and speak that provide us some better information on how we manage these areas. That's all we were talking about.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor McBain, one more comment, maybe just moving us onto a different subject here. There was one comment about North Star, what is it, what's the name of the road? Trying to find the right letter here.
North Star Drive.
North Star Drive. Yeah, just around the speed limits there. I know I've said in the past that I prefer to have professionals commenting on these things before we change them left, right, and center, but I do believe that there's some merit in what that letter was saying. So I just wanted to express that and maybe ask that staff read that letter and consider it.
I did want to make a comment about the letter from the Union of BC Municipalities regarding the Canada Community Building Fund, that they have sent us a payment of $200,834.74. And that's kind of nice to get from time to find ways to use with regard to the Community Building Fund.
Okay, thanks. Any other final comments or can we move on? One last comment here, Sue.
Just a quick comment. I guess, you know, I'm just spent the last week in Canmore, Penticton, Kelowna, visiting family with kind of this, spent a lot of time actually in bike parks and in the urban riparian green spaces. In these communities, these spaces and trees are fundamentally and functionally very important assets and treasured heat islands. And I think, you know, I really concur with Jason on this is a positive conversation about stewardship in our community going forward. And I recognize that there's been many years of very hard work to bring Mark Creek to the stage that it's at now. And, you know, thank you to everyone who's been involved in that. And I think it's really important to pay attention to these assets going forward. So that's what I'm looking for out of this. And I'm going to keep working on this. So thanks.
Councillor McBain, final comment? Okay, thanks. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Closed items released to public. We don't need to do that? Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry. Did I skip that? Here we go. Question period. Members of the public may call 1-800-741-7180, meeting number 2771-280-6687. If they have questions for council, the microphone will be unmuted for public during question period. The meeting will be, oh, sorry, it's not relevant. And I'll repeat that number one more time. 1-800-741-7180. And the meeting number is 2771-280-6687. If you have any questions for council, then the microphone will be unmuted for public during question period. And then before moving into that, we're going to do a brief around the table for councillor items. No. Yeah, we're just getting people to call in, and then they're going to be muted when they call in, and then we're going to do a brief round the table, and then it'll be question opened up to everyone. So, Jason?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to report. It's August and everybody seems to shut the mill down with respect to some of the committee work. But I do have a health center meeting coming up next week, so hopefully by next regular meeting, I'll have some updates there. Other than that, just I'm glad we got to talk about a little bit of the FireSmart things this week. You know, just and Woody, you touched on at the beginning of the thing with our friends out at in St. Mary's and Ktunaxa Nation. And I was in Edmonton over the weekend and just seeing a lot of Northwest Territories plates there and people who were displaced and folks in the Okanagan. It's a without being too alarmist, it's definitely should getting everybody's attention to recognize at least that this is we're in a new phase of how we adjust to things in the summertime, and it's really going to take a lot of community minded people to pull together and maybe change our behaviors, change the way we do things. I think Kimberley, we're doing that as a municipality. We're trying to be as proactive as we possibly can, and then carrying that over into our own daily lives and how we manage things, and really have a good hard look at how we're contributing to to our environment, whether negatively or positively. And it was a really eye-opening experience for me to see that many people with really actually quite good spirits, but yeah, it's tough to see that. So my heart goes out to them, and I hope for some better weather here soon, and can get through this, because it's like Steve and I were talking before the meeting. I mean, this could be us next year, right? So yeah, just thinking about those folks. That's it.
Councillor Royer?
Yeah, pretty quiet month also for me in August, but there is some stuff happening in the future. The fall fair is coming up, and I've been asked to go in the dunk tank again, so I will be participating into that again, and I hope that some of you will come out and try it out, maybe. But I've been chosen. I don't know why, but and also I plan to participate in the senior summer games in Abbotsford, and I do have to drive from Kimberley to Hope on Thursday, and I'm not allowed to stay anywhere overnight through my route because of all the smoke fire problems. So just letting you know, if anybody's traveling, you can't stay anywhere right now in a lot of areas in BC. So just want to let you know, maybe, well, maybe fly. I don't know about that, but make ultimate plans. And that's it.
Thanks, Stephen. Councillor Cairns?
Thanks. So as I mentioned, I was in Kelowna and Penticton, and so uh, feeling, yeah, again, very lucky to be able to come home and knowing people who got out with their lives. That's it. And any illusion that climate disasters don't happen where we live are gone. And harm, yeah, and loss to so many will take a very long time to recover from. So, and then unprecedented rate of fires moving, 20 kilometers in 12 hours and 30,000 people ordered out of their homes. Another 30,000 on alert. Yes, in our area, we're very fortunate to be having alerts lifted. We're in our second year of drought in the province, and the province, most of the province is at stage 4 and 5. Farmers can't feed their cattle. Anyway, I'm feeling pretty, well, I guess luck. We've got a lot of luck here right now, and it was really nice to see the rain. I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thanks, Sue. Can we hear from Sandra and then Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I don't have anything to report with regard to my relationship with the Arts Center since I've been here for quite a while. I told you about the last meeting, but I'm in Penticton, and just further to what you've all been saying, in the deep, deep depths of smoke we are, with fires both from Keremeos and Kelowna. And I've spent most of today empathizing with displaced people who have come into the store that we have here to find something for their children to do, because they have literally left on a dime with nothing, and they're all terrified, and they're all looking for some way to calm their children. It's a little piece of the puzzle that you sort of never think about in terms of packing your goodies because there's a fire. Good idea to take something for the kids to do, it turns out. And these people are absolutely in shock and require kindness and careful handling, because they're only a small breath away from tears all throughout the whole area here. The only thing that there's a big, huge Ironman here that's been canceled. The only thing that's sort of kept going has been a hockey school, which is a big summer hockey school. Those people have been allowed to stay. And I've had people come up from Oliver today who said that they're not getting very many of the people that are being displaced for some reason, and that they're only at 30% occupancy down there. So it's a real interesting time for all of us to sort of really take a look at what our lives are like and what good things we have, and to take advantage of our opportunities when we have them, and to be ready on a dime to take off in your vehicle if you can, if you have one. And it's just really like Sue was saying, you kind of count your blessings. The fact that we've kind of escaped so far this year is pretty awesome, really. So that's all I have to share.
Mr. Mayor?
Got it. Thanks for those words, Sandra and folks. It's funny. I don't think there are too many of us that have forgotten what it was like to be on evacuation alert. We spent 19 days in August of 2018 that was pins and needles. That was some defining moments around how we as a community deal with pending disaster. And as it has been eloquently put, we empathize with those that have been less fortunate than we have at this point in time. I'll update everybody at the next council meeting on specific activities, but I do want to mention 2 events that I did attend over the last couple of weeks. The first was an invite to present a welcome on Pride Day. Bev and I spent a few hours hanging out and had an awesome time. And congratulations to the organizers for a job well done. I also had an opportunity to welcome and meet with and talk to students from Guangzhou in China. AQG had brought, I think it was 22 students and 3 teachers over from China for a visit through our area and eventually moving into Alberta. It's always great to see the students here, and I think that AQG are using that as an opportunity, or not AQG, but Purcell are using that as an opportunity to recruit students for not just this fall, but for next fall for Purcell International Collegiate. It was an awesome event down at St. Eugene. That's it.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. For myself, I did have the opportunity to attend a arts gala that the mayor was actually invited to attend, but he's on vacation. So I was able to say a few words on behalf of the city there. It was a nice event celebrating some local artists and their works, as well as a night of classical music and hors d'oeuvres. And I enjoyed it. And
Thanks so
I
much for
appreciate the
doing that.
invitation.
Appreciate
And,
you doing that.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And other than that, I did attend a food hub meeting that I was invited to as a counselor, just to see what they're up to. And that was an interesting meeting. They're up to a lot of different things. It's kind of a collection of many different organizations working together to try to create some food security within our communities in Kimberley and Cranbrook. So it was neat to see those groups working together. And with that, moving into the question period, do we go with online first? Yeah. So do we have anybody currently waiting?
So the person with the phone number ending with 92, if you can identify yourself and ask your question to council.
Hi there, my name is Jessica Lowy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I'm a resident of the 300 block of Crerar Street, where sidewalk removal is slated to begin potentially as soon as tomorrow, based on the fact that city workers were here today putting out no parking signs. The reason for calling in today is less of a question. I'm more of raising a concern and hoping to draw people's attentions to their email inboxes. The residents of this block have submitted questions and concerns to this council and to the operations department, specifically to Ryan Reynolds, who's been mentioned tonight. They were submitted proactively as soon as notice was received. However, since earlier this month, we have just been on radio silence. Many of our questions and concerns remained unacknowledged and unanswered. So my request today to this council is to encourage you and the operations department to engage with us residents in a meaningful way and to do so before the removal of the sidewalk begins. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Could I get Nick to maybe respond to this one? Is that okay, Nick?
Hi, Jessica. This is Nick Morset here, Senior Manager of Operations. Thanks for your call this evening. And I guess I first want to start off by saying that I believe we've had some numerous conversations with residents there, and Ryan did send a response to emails from the residents. I'm just looking at them now. It didn't look like you were included on the email, but we have responded to the residents. So I guess there might be a miscommunication or a gap in the communication there, and we apologize for that. But we will forward on our response. And in regards to the removal itself, I don't believe it's planned for removal starting tomorrow. We're going to fix up the other side of the street this week, and once that other side is fixed up and dealt with, then we'll move on to the other side of the street and proceed with the removal. So the gist of the response that was sent to the other residents that I guess you didn't see was that we're following the sidewalk policy that the city has here and working with our asset management recommendations. And as part of that, there's been some areas in town that have been identified with underutilized sidewalks that we're trying to trim down that asset burden and focus on areas expanding our network, joining those gaps and links in our network, and focusing on the ones that are used. If residents are not happy with that decision still, and it would like to see a sidewalk replaced, they have the option of petitioning council, coming forward with a proposal to enact a local area service to replace that sidewalk.
Thank you for providing that update. I have seen that response. There have been numerous other communications sent to your team at the operations department that remain unanswered, including one from myself this evening. So I hope that you will continue to engage with us and respond to those emails and those concerns, because I think that there are some valid questions that could be answered, including, you know, what does it look like to go through that process for us as the residents to put that sidewalk back? Those are some examples of the things that have just been left hanging since earlier in this month. So I will say thank you for doing what you have so far, but the radio silence that we've received lately is concerning. I met with the residents of the 300 block today and confirmed that nobody has heard back recently. So if you could continue those conversations, we would all greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Unaware of emails that haven't been responded to. And just a reminder, if you are sending things to city staff regarding operations, it's always best to include that operations@kimberley.ca email. That way it gets directed to the appropriate manager and filters through myself as well. But thank you. We will review that and get back to residents with any further questions and clarifications on the process.
Great. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other callers online? Okay, how about in the room? Would anybody like to speak in the room? You just have to go up to the mic, sorry. It's just so that our online listeners can hear what you're saying, as well as the mayor and Sandra, who are both online.
I was wondering if anybody on council, I think maybe Sue did, but did anybody go up and look at the bike park expansion? And actually look at the trees that got felled there? Okay, I have detailed photos of every tree practically that went down in there. And they're not rotten. Those trees were totally healthy. Now I see that all that land there is sitting there with weeds growing on it and these perfectly healthy trees. And I will go up there with anybody here and we'll go look. They're not rotten. I have photo after photo after photo.
Sorry,
There's no rot in
Steve,
the cores.
just maybe just keep it to questions so that we can
Okay.
keep it
So-
moving and keep it amiable.
So my question is, if the city is cutting down really good, nice green trees, then I went around and I took a whole lot of pictures of great big dead ones, like at the park there at the Kimberley Independent School, giant poplar trees, which are known to blow down. The native cottonwoods don't. That's a dangerous tree. I have numerous photos of other ones that are ready to fall down on Rotary Drive and into power lines and that kind of thing. There's a great big dead one over the dumpsters at the aquatic center on the end that has the dumpsters. So
So Steve,
You know,
I can respond to that one. If you do see dangerous trees around town that you think are a public hazard, they need to be reported to operations so that they're on our list, so that staff can then identify them as potential hazards, go out and assess whether they need to be felled and fell them for our public safety. We don't go around city looking for hazards. We rely on the public to report them to city staff.
So who is it that reported the hazards up at the bike park, that all these beautiful, vibrant trees needed to be cut down? Who decided that?
I don't have the names of the individuals that reported those trees, sorry.
Okay, but that was my main comment. I just wanted to say those trees were not a bunch of rotted, dead trees. And our native cottonwoods don't blow down. Nobody here can show me one cottonwood tree that blew over and pulled up the roots. You see it with the conifers. I have photos of all kinds of dead trees. One of the big larches is dead right over there by 106 Avenue. Big thing like this, towering up. There's a prayer circle with all kinds of rocks and a little bench and all that. It could fall down on the trails. That, like, these dangers are everywhere. So I'm sorry, but I'm calling it out that those trees weren't rotten up there at the bike park. And if that was a really dangerous area, that's the last place you should expand a bike park into. So next question, because I do have a question, is there a plan to reseed or replant or do anything in that before we get knapweed growing up there and all kinds of other noxious weeds?
Is there any staff that could speak to that?
Yeah, the project's underway. We're working with Kimberley Trail Society to continue on the next phase of that. Our manager of parks and facilities, Nicole, is working with them to see this project through. And yes, there will be further works happening in there.
There'll be reseeding and things like that, so we don't get like knapweed that deep growing everywhere on this. Every time you disturb soil, first thing comes back are noxious weeds.
Yeah.
And it's just sitting there now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ready to go for the next phase. We're waiting on hiring some contractors to get in there and start the next phase.
And the city believes that was a good place to expand a bike park into when it had.
There's
all
no
these
expansion there.
terrible trees in
That's all within the existing footprint of the bike park that was there currently. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make the point, those trees weren't dead or decaying or in any manner, and go look at them yourself if you don't believe me. And I think what was done there was just complete,
Steve,
looks like amateur hour, like.
could we just keep it to questions and, yeah.
Pardon?
Do you have any further questions?
Well, yeah, I mean, my question would be, or just a comment really, that hopefully there's a plan to get professionals to in the future to look at what trees really need to go. And anybody can drive around and see all the dead ones that are overhanging power lines and trails and roads. You know, I'm supposed to call it in, but I thought that the city looked at that kind of thing. They looked at the trees at the bike park, decided to slaughter 10 beautiful trees.
Councilor McBain, you want to respond to that?
Steve, I want you to understand, I think that you heard tonight that some people are listening and some people, we can't as councillors be everywhere at all the time. And I understand what you're seeing maybe is something that, you know, was unintended or whatnot. But I hope that you heard tonight that people do care and people do want to try to protect our riparian areas and try to have a good balance of what some city services that some people want in the name of parks while protecting our natural environment. So if you have more questions, I'd love to hear them, but I just want you to understand that there are people here on council that do care. What's done is done. The trees are removed. I'm sorry about that. I mean, we're moving forward, but I hope what you heard tonight was at least a recognition that, you know, we're not just about willy-nilly moving forward without, you know, at least trying to understand some of the consequences.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And I appreciate everybody letting me have my say. And I will be sending a lot of photos of dead trees that are much more egregious than anything was even near that bike park. And that way then you can do what you want with it. If you want to cut them down, or you want to leave them there, that's fine. Okay, thank you.
Trying to find it here. So, notice of closed meeting. I have a motion on the floor that the meeting immediately following this meeting be closed to the public pursuant to community charter as the subject matter being considered relates to sections 9(1)K negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in the public. And 92B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. Can I have a mover? That's Councillor Royer first and Councillor McBain seconds. All those in favor? That motion's carried. So we are moving into a in-camera session now. So we'll ask the public to